Hi, I'm Kenzie. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are just joining, welcome. Today we will be talking about my 12th Little Bear VHS, Campfire Tales. This VHS includes The Campout, Captain Little Bear, The Top of the World, and Whale of a Tale. First, let's talk about The Campout. This episode starts out with Grandfather Bear taking a nap in the hammock, Grandmother Bear doing laundry outside, and Little Bear helping her. After helping Grandmother Bear hang something on the clothesline, Little Bear went inside the sheet, to which he described that it looks just like being in a tent. He then asked Grandmother Bear if he can sleep outside. It could be a camp out. Grandmother Bear said it would be fine as long as he could find someone to camp out with him, so he asked Grandfather Bear to sleep outside. They set up a tent by putting a huge sheet on the clothesline. The scene then transitions to Little Bear packing for the trip. Grandfather Bear just sat and watched. Little Bear packed an umbrella in case it rains, a map in case they get lost, and pillows in case they want to have a pillow fight. The scene transitions again to Grandfather Bear singing an old campfire song. He taught it to Little Bear. The thing was, Little Bear couldn't get the Fuba Wooba part right. I don't blame him. It is a little tricky the first time after all. Anyway, Grandmother Bear came out with cookies for Little Bear to pack. And so Little Bear and Grandfather Bear were ready for the camp out. They went inside their tent. It soon got dark. Grandfather Bear was still teaching Little Bear the song. Suddenly, he sneezed on his cookie. Grandfather Bear told him that if you sneeze when you eat a cookie, it means there is a full moon outside. Now at first Little Bear didn't believe him, but when he looked outside, Grandfather Bear was right. Then Little Bear saw a falling star. Grandfather Bear told him to blink 3 times, clap his hands twice, and make a wish. He wished that the campout would last forever. The scene transitions to Grandfather Bear and Little Bear singing the song. Afterwards, the candle went out. That meant it was time for all good bears to go to sleep. So Grandfather Bear and Little Bear got underneath the blanket. Little Bear was a little nervous. He had never been at a campout before after all. Also, he had never stayed up late at night outside. A long time ago, Grandfather Bear did with another little bear. She was nervous about her first campout, but she soon realized that if you sing a song before you go to sleep, the moon would keep an eye on you all night long. So Grandfather Bear and Little Bear sang one more verse to the same song. The next day, Little Bear was the first one to wake up. Mother Bear and Father Bear were out to greet him. Little Bear told him everything that had happened. He even sang the funny song that Grandfather Bear taught him. Mother Bear sang along. It turned out it was her that once camped out with Grandfather Bear when she was young. Then she told Little Bear to wake up Grandfather Bear and they would all have breakfast. So Little Bear did just that. He even tickled his ears just to wake him up. Then they grabbed their backpacks and went to the house to have breakfast. And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was a fun one. I mean, Little Bear has taught me that camping can be fun. I've always wanted to go camping, but I've never gotten the chance to for some reason. Still, watching Little Bear camp is just as much fun. All in all, it's a good episode. Now let's talk about Captain Little Bear. This episode starts out with Little Bear and Cat pretending to be pirates and walking the plank. Then they spotted a broken boat. They decided to fix it so it could be a pirate ship. Then they noticed a bottle with a map inside. A pirate map with a big X on it. That meant it would lead to the treasure. They took an oar to use as a mast and placed it into the ground. Then Owl entered the scene to say hello. So did Duck and Hen. They were looking for Little Bear and Cat because Hen made a picnic for them. Then Little Bear showed everyone the pirate map that would lead them to buried treasure. The thing was they didn't know where it was. Owl thought it must be on a lost island. Little Bear figured that's where they have to go to find the treasure. So he took Hen's tablecloth and used it as a sail. Little Bear decided to name the boat the Ladybug because ladybugs are good luck. The scene transitions to Little Bear's imagination, where he and his friends were set sail on a real boat. He mentioned that they should each have special names because that's what people do on boats. Cat was named Whiskers, who was the navigator. Owl was named Smart Eyes, who was the lookout. Duck was named Dr. Quack, who was the ship's doctor. And Hen was named Two Pecks, who was in charge of making picnics. Then with the next gust of wind, the ladybug was on its way. Owl licked part of his wing to check the wind. It was in the stern quarter. That meant a storm was coming up. Duck hoped not because they wouldn't want any seasickness on board. Then they were in for a blow. Hen's picnic basket was going back and forth. She didn't feel like a picnic anymore. So Duck tried to make her feel better. She felt fine, but Duck wasn't. Then a wave made the boat crash into the island. Land ho! They made it to Lost Island. So they walked along the island and talked about how they would find the treasure. Duck said they must keep a sharp eye out. Their sharp eyes led to a plank. They had to walk across it. Duck was scared. Little Bear decided to give her a hand. So everyone walked the plank. Then Owl saw a path. It turned out it was just their boat. They've gone in a big circle. Little Bear thought it wasn't Lost Island because there was no X anywhere, and the sun was going down. Then Owl spotted the X on Duck. X marks the spot. So everyone dug and dug until the buried treasure of Lost Island was discovered. They opened it and saw the treasure inside the chest. Duck picked up a beautiful spoon. They took the treasure back to the ladybug. The scene transitions to everyone sailing back home. The problem was the water was in the boat. They were sinking, so everyone decided to lighten the boat by eating Hen's picnic. They were still sinking even though they had eaten everything. This called for serious measures. They had to toss the treasure chest over or they were going to sink. Duck was disappointed. The scene transitions to reality, where everyone was talking about their adventure. Duck was still disappointed about the treasure. Little Bear did manage to save the spoon, though. Duck was happy again. She hugged Little Bear. Then everyone walked away from the boat. And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was quite an adventure. Pretending to be pirates is fun. Also, when they tossed the treasure chest over, I felt sorry for Duck. She really loved that treasure. But in the end, the real treasure is spending time with your friends. I'm sure Duck has learned that too. All in all, it's a great episode. Now let's talk about the top of the world. This episode starts out with Little Bear and Father Bear going on an adventure. This adventure was going to be full of surprises. Little Bear loves surprises. He wondered where they should go and how many parts the surprise has. There was a waterfall and a log bridge. Those were good surprises, but there was more to come. So Little Bear and Father Bear continued their adventure. They had made it to Clear Blue Lake. That was half of the surprise. They had to look for the other half. Then Father Bear suggested to try a little fishing. So the scene transitions to Little Bear and Father Bear getting their fishing poles ready. Suddenly, they accidentally got tangled up. Father Bear fixed that problem. Then they started fishing. Father Bear caught a fish first. Then Little Bear followed suit. It was a jumper. Then Little Bear heard whistling. It was Uncle Rusty. Little Bear gave him a big bear hug. That was the surprise. Uncle Rusty was coming on their adventure. Little Bear told him they were fishing and asked if he would like to fish too. Uncle Rusty was delighted to. Now Uncle Rusty fishes very differently than how Little Bear and Father Bear fish. He caught one by scooping it up. He taught Little Bear to fish his way. Unfortunately, Little Bear couldn't scoop the fish. He needed more practice. Then, like only a bear can, he caught one in his mouth. Don't worry, he didn't hurt the fish. He just caught it and then released it. Little Bear was a good fisherman. After some fishing, Father Bear mentioned that they were going to the top of the world. Little Bear was surprised. That was the biggest surprise yet. So he, Father Bear, and Uncle Rusty rode and rode. Afterwards, they started hiking. Little Bear found a walking stick just for him. When he, Father Bear, and Uncle Rusty got near the top, it got foggy. It turned out they were inside a cloud. It even started to snow a bit. After a while, they got to the top of the world. They listened to the evening wind, which was blowing the clouds away. Little Bear could see so far. Uncle Rusty yelled, "We're on top of the world!" An echo was heard. Then Little Bear noticed Father Bear's and Uncle Rusty's walking sticks planted in the ground with rocks to keep them in place. Little Bear planted his stick in the ground and placed a rock to keep it in place. Uncle Rusty and Father Bear congratulated him for making it to the top of the world. Little Bear yelled, "I'm on top of the world!" An echo was heard, and that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was quite an adventure. It had a lot of action. There was hiking, fishing, rowing, and climbing. Everything you need for an adventure. It makes me wish I could do something like that. Of course, at the end of the day, I learned that anything can be an adventure, whether you're going on vacation or just using your imagination. All in all, it's a great episode. Now let's talk about Whale of a Tale. This episode starts out with Father Bear and Little Bear sailing on a boat to Blue Hill Island. Father Bear controlled the steering wheel while Little Bear looked through a telescope. Little Bear thought that maybe they'll see his whale friend. Father Bear agreed. Then he mentioned that he had a whale friend too. He was very big. He called him Mighty. Mighty called Father Bear Big Bear because he was a big bear. How did he meet him? Well, Father Bear explained that it was many years ago, not far from the very spot. Mighty was cruising the ocean, munching on this and that. He filled his belly and dove deep down through a seaweed forest. The seaweed was very thick, and he didn't see Father Bear's fishing net. Mighty didn't like it one bit and started swimming as fast as he could to get away. Father Bear called and called to Mighty, but he couldn't hear him. Yes, Father Bear caught a whale by mistake. Also, he started pulling Father Bear's boat around like it was a toy. Mighty was headed for the island. He was going to get stuck on the beach if he didn't stop. And you know what? He got stuck fast. Mighty was struggling. Father Bear told him to be calm and was sorry he netted him. Mighty asked him if he can help him. Father Bear said he would try. So he called for some seagulls to help. They gathered seaweed and dropped it on Mighty's big back to keep it from getting dry in the hot sun. Then Father Bear called for some sea lions to help. They swam under Mighty and dug away as much sand as they could with their flippers. Little Bear bet that tickled. Then Father Bear needed Mighty's help too. Now I know what you're thinking. What can Mighty do since he was stuck? Well, Father Bear got back in the boat, started the engine, and slowly pulled away from the beach. He had a plan for Mighty. He slapped the water with his huge tail. Father Bear's plan was working. Mighty was back in the water. What did Father Bear do then? Well, he took a knife, dove under Mighty, and cut him free from the net. Mighty thanked Father Bear. The scene transitions to the present. Little Bear was impressed. Now he had to find a whale. Then he noticed a fountain on the ocean. But it wasn't a fountain. It was a whale. A small whale. Then Mighty appeared. He, Little Bear, and Father Bear said hello to each other. It turned out that little whale was Mighty's little one. The little whale was a good jumper. Then something extraordinary happened. Mighty and his little whale put on a great whale show for Little Bear and Father Bear. The scene transitions to Little Bear thanking the whales for the show. Suddenly, Mighty warned Father Bear about a storm coming. They had to get back before it hits. The problem was, the engine wouldn't start, and they couldn't outrun the storm without it. Mighty decided to help them. He had a plan. Father Bear told Little Bear to hang on because the little boat was going to be moving pretty fast. The whales pulled the boat. Little Bear was having the time of his life. And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode is the most memorable one I can think of. I remember it fondly. It had a great introduction to Mighty the whale. Also, it had a change of scenery. That means we saw Little Bear and Father Bear in a different place like we've hardly ever seen on the show. I mean, going on a trip across the ocean to Blue Hill Island is probably the biggest trips I can think of. If you want to go on a trip like that, you'd have to have a ton of money. Luckily for Little Bear, Father Bear has a boat he goes trips on quite often. All in all, it's a memorable episode. So yeah, that's Campfire Tales. If you would like to play again, just go back to the beginning of this episode. See you next time. Bye!